welcome. Thanks for coming. Oh, there it is. I had the wrong button pushed, so you were looking at my empty desk. Thanks for coming. I'm so glad you're here. I have so many things to talk to you about this week. This is going to be great. And okay, so if the three of you that are here, you're probably not new, but for those of you watching in the future who are new, and this is your first time this is your first time coming to Number Knitting Live with Kelly, let me introduce myself and what I'm doing. And thank you for coming. I'm so excited. Okay, so this is Number Knitting. It's my favorite number knitting book. It's my only number knitting book. It's my favorite knitting book. It was published in 1952 by Virginia Woods Bellamy. She's amazing. And she did a correspondence course of her garter stitch method, got it patented, and then she published a book in 52. It was only printed one time, 5,000 copies, and then it fell into obscurity. And I think she passed away in like 1979. And there hasn't been really anyone to carry on her legacy. And so about 8 years ago, I took it upon myself to do just that. And I've been working on this project for 8 years. And I thought originally that for a long time, I thought I'd want to like republish the book and like do a whole new edition. And I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but in the meantime, maybe in years from now it will, but in the meantime, I digitized it. I made it available for people who want to knit along with me, and because the book is so hard to find. Like I said, there was 5,000 copies originally, and I checked in WorldCat, and I've looked in the number knitting outline listing of WorldCat before, lots of times, and I think there's 38 copies in the US. And I had this grand idea. I'm going to do a road trip in my RV across the country and go take a picture of myself in all the libraries that have it, Kelly with number knitting book. And I did it at one library, but then I got to thinking, maybe it's not available for me everywhere, because one of the places that's listed is Harvard University, and I thought, well, I'm not a Harvard student, and I don't know anyone that is, and they're probably not just going to let some random stranger onto the Harvard University campus and go in their library and stuff. And so then on WorldCat, I checked the box show only public libraries. And friends, there's only 12 copies available in all the public libraries in the US. So most of the copies are in private and university websites that we don't have access to, unless, I don't know how it works with the university library, if you have to have a chaperone, or you have to find someone that can let you in, a student or a professor or something. I don't know. Anyway, I still think it'd be really fun to do the road trip and get the picture of me with all the books, but I don't know. I'll put that on my list of things to do. Yeah, Harvard. You say Harvard. Karen says Harvard, they would let me in, or they would require a chaperone. Which one? Because I'm curious. I've never been to Harvard, ever. Anyway, and I don't know anyone that is there, so I think that might be a fun trip. Anyhow, so let's get on to what we're doing. So part of the thing I've been doing recently with my since launching this whole video podcast thing is I've been really researching Virginia's publication history. We talked a few weeks ago about Puff Bunny Wardrobe, and it was this cute little garter stitch and ribbing set that she published in 1934 over I think a period of 4 McCall's Needlework magazine. No, that was Women's Home Companion is where Puff Bunny Wardrobe was was published. Karen says, you just walk in, you walk like you know what you're doing. Roger that. I can do that. Okay, so Puff Bunny Wardrobe was published in 34, but then she had some additional patterns, some number knitting patterns published in I think McCall's 44 and maybe 46. And so I've been gathering these magazines, and let me show you. I've got a collection of these things. Yeah, so I've got all these magazines in here, and I bought some more. I bought some more. And I wanted to show you what I got most recently. Because McCall's Needlework is, because there's McCall's magazine, which is sort of like, you know, like, I don't know, home decor, like fashion or short stories, or I don't know. I don't have any copies of that. But then there was McCall's Needlework, which was like tatting and crochet and embroidery and knitting and like the, you know, needlework. I think it might have even been called Needlework and Crafts, because sometimes there was like chair upholstery and things like that. So those were published, I think, like in the early years, it was like twice a year. So there was like a spring, summer, and then there was a fall, winter. As the magazine progressed, so like in the later 50s, 60s, and 70s, the frequency with which the magazine was published, it got more and more. But once a year, they would do something. They would do something called a Needlework and Crafts Annual, and I'm pretty sure this is from 1951, I think. I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to check the listing that I got it from. I think it's from 50. I think it's from 51, because I got the 1950 version, and this looks like it could be 51 because the images are still very, they're kind of got that glam 1950s look, but it's still very kind of restrained. And if you look at the women's dress, like it's still pretty tight, and he looks pretty, you know, pretty polished, and everything is very tidy still. As it goes, you know, longer into the 50s, like things get more, I guess, more modern. Anyway, so there's a couple things I like about this magazine. First of all, we've got a lovely picture of Elizabeth M. Blondell, and she's actually mentioned in the very beginning of Virginia's introduction, and she said that Miss Blondell she was the one that recommended that Virginia get a patent. And so in all of Virginia's work with McCall's Needlework, this is who she was interfacing with, was Elizabeth Blondell. And I checked to see if she had any family, like, you know, husband and kids. And I speculated that she probably didn't, because she was a working woman full-time in the, you know, 40s, 50s. And most married women at that time did not have full-time jobs outside the home. And I did a little reading online, and there was some articles about her. She lived with her sister. And so if you're married and well, you probably aren't going to live with your sister, for one thing. I mean, maybe some people do, but most people are not going to live just with their sister. And so anyway, she was a single lady, lived with her sister, had no kids. And so I thought, the reason I was curious about that is I thought, well, maybe her family, you know, because she was the editor of this great magazine for years, like they surely would have saved her work, like more copies of it, but she doesn't have any kids, so that was a dead end. But anyway, I thought this was interesting. Another reason I purchased this magazine is because I thought, well, the instructions said it was like, you know, in the eBay listing, it said like full instructions, and I was like, heck yeah, I want full instructions. And so I bought this thinking like maybe there could be some lost Virginia Bellamy patterns in here, and there's not. But anyway, I thought it was interesting nonetheless. And so there's like all kinds of crafting things, like how to make wood carving and leather craft and block printing and stenciling. There's just like, they have 10 different kinds of crafts listed here, and you know, how to do lettering, and it's an interesting read, because it captures a moment in time, but also it captures like the crafting trends of the day, and using the technology that they had available. Like I feel like if they were to do something like this now, it would be very, very different. If you were going to put out an annual magazine of things that you could make around your home, it would look absolutely nothing like this. So the reason I know that Virginia doesn't have anything in here is because if you look on page 26, like 26 through about 47 is kind of the knitting section. And so I flipped I flipped through that, and there's nothing of Virginia's in there, although they do have a pretty good learn to knit section, and they've got garter stitch, they've got ribbing, stockinette, and they have a couple of garter stitch items, a belt, a hat, and a scarf. Incidentally, this this belt here, if I can find, yeah, here's, maybe Virginia was inspired by this to make this belt. This is the pattern called bag and hat of straw yarn. But what's not in the title is that there's this belt that goes with it. And so it's half of it is garter stitched, you know, in a short row, and half of it is garter stitched in a long row. And you put it on with buttons. Of course, I don't have the buttons. I never completed it. But anyway, that's in the book. And it's very similar, if you look at the construction, it's very similar to, hey Bob, welcome, this, which I just think is interesting. Oh, this is kind of cute. I never noticed that. Virginia, she does like crocheted buttons, but these are like little, I don't know if you can see it very well in the video. They're like knitted, like little covers that go over the button. So that's kind of fun. I'm still thinking about working with the Copyright Office again to research if, I know that they'll be happy to do it for me, but I'm curious to hire them to do the copyright research to see if anyone ever renewed the copyright for McCall's needlework. If no one ever renewed or transferred the copyright, then technically it would be in the public domain. I think someone at the Copyright Office, some probably young, I don't know, research assistant or somebody is really interested, because they emailed me like a week ago, and you know, they gave me the details, like here's how much it's going to cost, $400. I guess it's $200 an hour, minimum of 2 hours. So this is like the minimum amount of work that they have to do is $400. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, but I've been busy this week, and so I didn't think much of it. They emailed me again, like, what? They're like, we can do this for you if you're interested. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe if they email me a third time, I'll take them up on it. But I just, I was more curious about the copyright transfer for number knitting than I was for McCall's Needlework. But if McCall's Needlework is in the public domain, that means that you, me, and whoever can scan or photograph these things and digitize them and get them up. Because I mean, there's some old McCall's Needleworks, like in the web archive, the Wayback Machine. I think the Wayback Machine. Maybe it's the web archive. Maybe they're one and the same. I don't know. There are some from like the 1890s, and there's some from like the 1980s, and there's like nothing in between. And interestingly, they're all then, even the ones from the 80s, they're all in black and white. Like, why would you do that? Why would you take the time to scan something in black and white? I don't know. I would do color. So anyway, that's something I'm considering is maybe we could like crowdsource this, and we can, you know, all we can all digitize McCall's Needlework for posterity, because no one has taken the time to do it yet. Maybe yes, maybe they do have time on their hands because they're government workers. I don't know what that's like. I have a very, very, very full work schedule, and so the little bit of time that I do have to do knitting related things, like on the computer, because I'll knit on the sofa, but when I'm like on my computer, it's like all hands on deck. Like I'm working, and I'm working on things that like pay the bills. And so my number knitting computer time is like, whoa, it's very small. That's okay. I do the most with what I can. Yes, we could totally do a road trip. I would love that. You know, I've been thinking about that, you know, because I know that a lot of people go to what's it called? The Sheep Festival in New York. I should know this. Rhinebeck. So a lot of people go to Rhinebeck every year, and I keep saying I'm going to go. And last year I backed out because I was afraid I would get sick. Like I've mentioned before, like I work by myself, and so I don't talk a lot, and so my voice gets very, very hoarse very quickly. But since I've been doing this, it's like getting stronger, and so my confidence to like go out and spend a weekend with like other people, talking to them, like I think I could do it this year. And we just got a camper van, and so we actually just got back from our first road trip, and so I could actually like jump in the van and like go to Rhinebeck and I guess stay in the campground nearby. I don't know, but anyway, it's a lot more like schedule wise and logistics wise. It's actually something I can do this year, so I'm excited about that. Okay, so we talked about the books. Let's talk about the basic shapes. I know I have a whole video about this, but for those of you who either haven't watched the video or you're new, I just want to go over this real quick because the whole idea of number knitting is that, and even the patent, it's broken down into 7 basic shapes. And those shapes, I think 6 of them are listed on the patent, and then she came up with the 7th one that is included in the book. And so the first shape is a square, and all of these are based on 45 and 90 degree angles. So you cast on, I think this is 20, you cast on 20, work it in garter stitch, bind off. This is a square. Do I have a rectangle? I do not have a rectangle, but just envision it. Rectangle. Okay, the next shape is a triangle. And so you cast on 20 or however many stitches that you need, and then you slip the first stitch, do a single decrease on one side, and so that's going to give you this 45 degree angle all the way until you get to the end. Now, if you want to work a triangle the other direction, you cast on your 20 stitches and slip the first stitch, work all the way to the end to the last 3 stitches, and then knit stitch 2 and 3 together, and then purl the last stitch, and that will give you a triangle leaning in the other direction. Now, if you want a parallelogram, she calls this a single wing, and so you cast on, my bind off and my cast on match. Okay, so you cast on your 20, you work, here it is, that's better. You cast on your 20, you work an increase, you work a decrease on one side, knit all the way across, and then work an increase. And you do that on the odd rows. All of these increases and decreases are on the odd rows. And then you knit across, and then again, you decrease here, increase here, and that's going to keep the stitch count the same going all the way up. And you make it as long as you want, and that is a single wing. Now here is what she refers to as a double wing. It's similar to the single wing. It's like 2 single wings put together. So you cast on your stitches. On the one side, you do an increase. In the center here, you're going to do a double decrease, so a knit 2 together. And she says, then another knit 2 together. I like a mirrored decrease line, so I do a knit 2 together and then a slip, slip, knit, and then you knit to the last 3, and you increase 1 stitch. So you're going to be increasing here and decreasing here. This is called double wing. And then I think for modular knitting, this is like people's favorite shape because it's so adaptable. You're going to cast on all of your stitches, and instead of increasing on one side like you did with the double wing, you're just going to knit across, and you're just going to do those decreases right here in the center. So you knit and do a double decrease, and then knit all the way across on the back, and then knit, do a double decrease, and knit. And so it's going to give you a nice square with a decreased line down the center, and the number of ridges is going to be equal to the number of stitches that you cast on. And this is a great shape for people's introduction to number knitting or modular knitting in general. This is a really great shape. And the last one, and I don't think this one is actually in her patent application. It might just be in her book. So this is called I think she calls it the divided triangle. A lot of modern people will call it, they use the word mitered instead of divided, but it's the same thing. So you're going to cast on your stitches, and you're going to decrease here on both sides and at the center line. And so each one, on every odd row, you decrease 4 stitches. And so this goes really fast. And Virginia had a woman in the book who described this as her favorite shape because it goes so fast. Okay, so those are the 7 shapes, and there's some other shapes in the book that she refers to as adapted units, so they're like combinations of those shapes, but she doesn't actually reference those like in the introduction. She just kind of, mentions them as they come up in the patterns. All right, so those are the basic shapes. I wanted to talk a bit about some books. And the reason I want to talk about some books is that there's been some kind of like confusion. Where is it? Oh, there it is. And it's not just on my part. It's kind of confusing in general. Whoops. Okay, so let me bring up the butterfly pattern that I've been working on. Oh, I have a new finished object. Well, it's mostly finished. Okay, it's on page 52. Let me bring that up for you so you can see it. There we go. Okay, so we've got this this shape here. It's called a double wing. And let me show you how her shapes are, since we're talking about the shapes. She has in the beginning of the book, she's got these 7 shapes described, and then you're supposed to draw them out and copy them so you can see how they work. Oh, hold on. I came up with something new this week that I think is going to help for you all to see my screen better. Let me get it fired up real quick. It's going to make my my mouse easier to see. What do you think? Okay, so you should be able to see my mouse better now. All right. Okay, so she's got these 7 shapes, and then she has you draw them out and knit little samples of them, just like I showed you. Hers are on 12, I think 12 by 12. Mine were on 20. And one thing I think that's noteworthy is here in this, it's in these descriptions of these 7 shapes where she has these little circle things, and they're she doesn't use these little ovals anywhere else in the book. They're only in the introduction, and I think it's just to help you kind of like get used to the idea of what the shapes are, because once you pass the introduction, you will never see these little ovals again. I finally put 2 and 2 together after all these years, like, oh, that's why we'd never seen those shapes again, because they're literally only in the introduction. And so what she has you do in the introduction is you make a little project. Like here is the square, you make a little sample square, and then she has you actually do a project for each shape. Let me see if I can, yeah, here it is. Let me show you this real quick. And this has stripes in it, but this is the project that I made from the square. I think you're supposed to do it like this. This is supposed to be a blouse front, and I have a whole video like, how is that a blouse front? But anyway, so this is a square, and it's on lace weight yarn, and so this would be one of the patterns from the book. Okay, and so she has that for all of the 7 shapes. But what I did this week is I went and I decided, you know, I'm gonna give this double wing a try. And honestly, I kind of wrote it off because I was like, well, that's like really like make a chevron, like how like I've been knitting for a long time, like I know how to make a chevron. But then I just been thinking about it and like, surely she has something to teach me by making a chevron, or she calls it double wing. Surely, like I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna see what she has to teach me with this. And so I did. I had a long road trip this weekend. My husband went fishing with his dad, and that meant that it was like 8 hours in the car each way, because he asked me, do you want to go? And I was like, yeah. And then I was like, 16 hours of knitting? Like, yeah, I want to go. Plus all the time that they were fishing. So that was great. Okay, so here is the double wing. And it's, oh, what the heck? What the heck? I got mud on it. Kelly. Well, here. We'll flip it over. No more mud. Gosh. All right, so let's see what Virginia has to say about this. Cast. Okay. You're going to use yarn A, the lightest weaving yarn, 2-ply, and you're going to need 2 ounces. Well, this ball of yarn had, I think it was 3 ounces, and a lot of Virginia's pattern, well, none of them specify yardage at all. They only specify it in ounces, which is not helpful. It probably was helpful in the 50s when yarn was sold by the ounce, and I guess it's sort of sold by the ounce now, but it's also like they specify yardage on there, and they specify fiber content and all of that. And so I didn't have any of that. So I guessed what yarn I was supposed to use. And I like this. It's on the label, it said fingering. It said fingering on the label, but I went with it anyway. And the reason for that, I had touched on this briefly last week. There was a book that came out, and it's called, I'm going to bring it up real quick so y'all can see it. It's called Tyrolean Knitwear, Tyrolean Knitwear book. There it is. So let me show you this. Okay, this book is amazing. I downloaded the sample of it, and the idea of it was this kind of like a peasant style. I don't remember exactly when it originated, but it was a peasant style, I think maybe like in the 40s or 50s or something, and it became popular among like the wealthy people that liked to wear those kind of styles skiing, but it was like a peasant style. Anyway, so this designer has, just in the Kindle sample, she put together like this whole history of what this style was about, where it came from. And another reason I thought it was just fabulous, besides like the whole social history part, is that she has this whole discussion on vintage yarns versus modern yarns. And she compares like vintage 2-ply to modern 2-ply, and vintage 3-ply to modern 3-ply. And she has this whole chart that gives you like equivalents like of the brand name yarns from, decades ago to what their modern equivalent is, because she's collected all these things. And so she actually has knitted samples of like both of them side by side. And it's spectacular. So even if you just get the sample, I think it's a worthwhile read. And so what I took away from that the most is that the older style yarns like in the time that Virginia was writing this book, a 2-ply yarn is a bit heavier, it's a bit bulkier than a 2-ply today. And I think that's important because in Virginia's book and also in the Tyrolean Knitwear book, there was no mention of how thick the plies were, or like maybe not necessarily what the fiber content was. Like maybe they just say it's a blend, like how much percent, because now, you know, we like to know like what the ply is, what the blend is, like maybe even what what breed of sheep it was, and they just didn't have that much information available. Like maybe the mills did, but the average knitter wouldn't have had that much information available, so she would have had to rely upon the expertise of the yarn shop salespeople, which is one of the things that irked Virginia so much. And I get that. So anyway, this yarn here that I chose, I think it is Cascade 220 fingering weight. And I don't know, I've used a lot of Cascade 220 in years gone by, because my local yarn shop back when I was in my 20s and 30s, they, you know, she stocked a ton of it and it was awesome. So that's what I would use a lot. But that was more like a sport weight or like closer to Aran weight. This is like a fingering weight, and it says fingering on the label, but I chose it for the pattern that Virginia specified, lace weight, because according to the Tyrolean Knitwear book, the yarns, the vintage yarns, are a bit plumper or a little bit heavier than the modern yarns. And so I decided to go with it. So this is 96 by 96. Pretty sure I got gauged. I have not blocked this yet. I was joking around with Karen, and I asked her what blocking was, and she said that she explained it to me. It was a joke. Like, I know what blocking is. I just don't do it as often as I should, because it's garter stitch, you know. Anyway, I haven't blocked this. I haven't washed it, as you can tell, because there's mud on it. I had my knitting all in a bag at my feet in the van as we were like driving through Alabama, and apparently my feet were muddy, and I managed to step on this. So, oh well, whatever. Okay, let's go back. I want to show you what else Virginia has to say about this. All right, you're going to cast on 96 stitches and follow the directions on the graph chart for the double wing, but cast off on the return row of the 32nd ridge, or the 64th row, that is, for the scarf in the photograph, which is 2/3 of the whole unit. And I think what she means by that is, like, normally if you cast on 96, no, it's 96 would be 48 plus 48 for like a full, the full unit. You would then knit 48 ridges, but on the scarf she has you knit 32 ridges. Okay, she says it was made of a delicate shell pink and the whole butterfly edged with silver and metal yarn. So, about 6 years ago, I saw that she mentioned silver yarn a lot, and I was like, I'm gonna get me some, and I'm gonna work with it. And I found this on Etsy. It's like 25,000 yards. I'm just guessing. There's no yardage listed on here. It was $14, and it looked smaller in the picture. And when I got it, I got the box. I was like, oh my gosh! Like, I'm never going to run out of silver tinsel. It's like a silver sewing thread. It's anyway. It's lovely, and it is a nightmare to work with. It's an absolute nightmare. I've used it for like plying into like spinning yarn before, and it looks great, but to knit with this, it is tough. So I think what I'm going to do with this is like make a crochet chain, because it's so thin. So I'm going to make a crochet chain of that, and then crochet that like around the edges here, because I want to do it faithfully, like according to the book. I'm going to crochet around the edges. Probably going to block it first before I add this stuff to it. But okay, so back to the pattern. It says to wear, bring. This is interesting. Like, have you ever seen a somebody wearing a scarf like that? Because normally modern knitters, you know, we would like do one of these, right? And it's, you know, just like a shawl-y thing. But she has something different in mind. She says to wear, bring the central point of the cast on edge, that's this, down towards the forehead. Cross wingtips in front, from shoulder to shoulder. Yeah, oh. So anyway, that's what this is. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but anyway, I wanted to knit it from the book because it's in the book, and I want to do it just like in the book because that's what I want to do. I want to have a sample of everything in the book knitted just like she specified. So that's what I've been working on. Yes, I'm going to knit everything in the book. Okay, so let's talk about books. Okay, I do have to give you a heads up. I have to leave at, I better hurry up, sharp at 7 tonight because I have to get up at 3:30 in the morning to catch a flight. So, come on, girl. You got this. All right. If you don't already have a copy of this, you should get a copy of this. I had been knitting for probably 3 decades before this came out and before I read it. And it is amazing. It's just so great. So it has some instruction in the front about the different types of fiber-like content, from like, you know, the synthetic, cellulose, protein, opossum. There's like all these different types of ways that you can get yarn. So even just this like one picture is awesome. But then as you go through the book, it talks about fiber foundations, making yarn, plying yarns, cabled yarns. And so it's going to help you understand like why certain yarns are good for certain things. Like I had a sweater once. It was made of 100% Angora. It was store-bought. It was lovely. It was so hot. It was ridiculous. And I think if you have a better understanding of like the fiber properties of each fiber, it will help you, it'll guide you in choosing the right yarn for your project. Like just because something is like super soft, like doesn't necessarily mean it's going to make a great sweater. Like I have that copper cardigan I'll show you here in a few minutes, and it was the perfect color, and I think it's maybe just a tad thicker than I needed, but it's like 85% alpaca, and I kept running out. I thought I was going to need 10 ounces because that's what Virginia said, and it turns out that I'm ending up to use like, I don't know, 18 ounces or something, and it's heavy, and it's going to be the kind of sweater, like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to wear it here in North Carolina because it's going to be so hot. Like, it would have to be, I don't know, 15 degrees outside for me to wear that sweater, and that never happens here. And so if you have a better understanding of your fiber content, I think that you'll be able to make better choices. And as a knitter, it talks about like single ply versus 2-ply versus like all the different types of, you know, how yarn is actually constructed and what those fibers and the ply combination, like how they make the yarn behave. And it's going to totally open your eyes. You're gonna love it. So I would highly recommend that you get this book. It's gold. It made me understand, like, I like to say it made me have a better idea of like what will and won't work for certain projects, other than, you know, just like getting something pretty at the yarn shop and then being sorely disappointed. Like, I have a bit of a better understanding now. Probably if I actually utilized more of this information, I would I'd be even better resourced, but you know, I do what I do. But anyway, you should read this book. Another couple of books I think are worthwhile, and I don't know how many of you are spinners. Oh, Rose said chain ply and knit with the ply. Chain ply. Yeah. Yes, I could do that. I could do that. But regarding yarns, I think another thing I've been realizing about myself lately is a lot of times I'll go to a yarn shop and I'll buy like one skein of yarn because I think it's interesting. And then you know, when I want to make something with it, I'm like, oh, I ran out. Like, of course you ran out. You know, dummy, you only bought one. But like, I don't know what I want to make with it until it sits on my yarn shelf for who knows how long. And then I like figure it out. Like a few years later, I'll be like, oh, I know what that wants to be. And then I'll go buy more. And I used to like get irritated with myself about that. But now I'm realizing like, it's not a stash. There's like specimens. Like they're my yarn specimens that I can just like look at and enjoy and love. And in time, maybe, hopefully, but maybe, they'll become something. But in the meantime, like I don't need to have like 8 skeins of a fancy yarn that I don't know what I'm going to do with. Like I'll just buy one until I need 8. and then I'll go buy 8. Because that's how I roll. Okay, next book. Okay, if you're interested in yarn, interesting yarn construction, and I love interesting yarn construction, this is a really great book. It's called The Spinner's Book of Yarn Designs, and it's all about how to make them yourself. And I think that's worthwhile to even if you don't spin, to understand like how these different yarns are made with the boucle and the spiral yarn and the singles and like, you know, these little ones that have beads in them, like why certain yarns with like beads and sequins are like $70 a skein, like because it's hard. It's really labor intensive to put sequins in yarn, and how to make slub singles. It's just, I think if you read a book like this, it's going to open your eyes to like the possibilities of yarn, because it's easy. As a knitter, you know, I love a good solid 2-ply or 3-ply, and I also love the look of the slubby yarn. I've tried to make it and I can only do lace weight, but that's another story. But this will help your understanding of like what the possibilities are for different fiber construction. So this is also a really great book if you want to learn about yarn construction. Okay, next book, and then we'll get back to number knitting because I got 18 minutes. Okay, so this is another useful one, the Spinner's Book of Fleece, because if you look at a skein of yarn, I don't have any ball bands up here. It'll say, you know, 100% wool or 80% wool and 20% nylon or whatever. And maybe you'll even go in with cashmere, but they generally won't say like the breed of the sheep unless you go to like a breed specific kind of a yarn company. And there's a few of them out there. I think there's one called North Bay Fiber that does want that. They do like breed specific yarns, and that's super cool. That is really cool. But like all the different breeds of sheep, they have different fiber qualities. So when I was a kid, I was in 4-H, and we raised sheep, and we raised them for market. You know, we took them to the county fair, and then, you know, we sold them and like, you know, raised money for fun things. But anyway, we were told their wool isn't good, and we had sheep for like 10 years. And so every year we'd shear them all. We'd put all the wool of all of our sheep, and sometimes we had like, I don't know, 10 or 15 sheep. We'd put it in garbage bags and we'd put it out on the street for the garbage man to haul away. And I look back now and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's awful. That's awful. I can't believe that we did that. But that's what we did because we were told it's no good. And then, you know, I'd go to like Walmart and buy acrylic yarn. Anyhow, the reason that we were told it wasn't good is because there was Suffolk sheep, and Suffolk sheep, the wool is coarser. They're I think it's called a down. I forget. It's been too long since I read this book. They have a different type of fiber than like Cormo or Merino or anything. There's different kinds of sheep. Whoop, not that one. There we go. And so this book talks about all the different types of sheep, long wools, downs and down breeds, multi-coated, and other breeds. Also fine wool. And so I bring up this one because all the times that Virginia mentioned, how many ounces something was, how many ounces of yarn it took, and I'm like, how can you make a sweater out of 9 ounces? Like, how is a long sleeve sweater? Like, how is that possible? And I wonder, like, maybe she was using a different breed of sheep, or like the company that made her wool, maybe they were using a different breed of sheep, and the yarn was just like more fluffy, and maybe it was like a woolen instead of a worsted. I don't know. I think the more that you know about your yarns and your yarn construction, the better choices that you're going to be able to make. You'll be a more educated knitter and yarn consumer, because we consume a lot of yarn, don't we? Okay, so that's enough about that. Those are the books that I love, that I think will make you a better knitter. Let's see what's up next. Okay, I got 15 minutes. Let's talk about the windmill hat. This is called, in the book, this is called the bag and hat of straw yarn. And this was just a little scrappy thing that I did. I was naughty, and I got in a hurry to cast on, and I even made my own stitch calculator. Did I use it? No, because I was tired and I wasn't on my computer, and I just wanted to cast on, so I gave it my best guesstimate. Oh, always entertaining. And so this is a little big. It's a little big. That's okay. I'm thinking it would fit somebody either with a bigger head or with like bigger hair. Like maybe if they had an afro or just like really curly hair, it would fit better. It's a little big. It would probably fit over my skiing helmet or bicycle helmet. But anyway, that's all right. So this is bag or hat of straw yarn. And you can take these four little tips and like gather them together and tie them and make a cute little bag. That's kind of nice. I don't know if I'll make a bag out of it or I'll just give it to someone with a bigger head. But anyway, that's also one of the things I did on my road trip. I finished that up. And DJ dyed all this yarn. DJ from Discovery of Stitches dyed all of this, and it's speckly and tonal, and I love it. Okay, next project. Copper cardigan. I'm going to need some advice on this one. Oh, hold on. It got stuck in the wheels of my chair. Just so people have been asking me, well, how much does this weigh? How much does that weigh? I brought a scale today to check how much this thing weighs. A scale and a mixing bowl. All right. I haven't even finished. I have half of the collar to go, and I've got some sleeves to go, and I'm at 22 ounces. Wow. And the original pattern said I would need 9, but buy 10 for safety. Oh dear. Okay. Oh, copper cardigan. This is big. And maybe it will seem less big once, I don't know, I think it's big. Okay, so I can't even show you the whole thing in my little camera. Oh, here, let me try something else. I got a special new whiz-bang adapter that's supposed to let me show you my, there we go. All right. Make sure. All right, so I don't know if you can see this. This is my camera on my phone. I'm going to see if I can zoom out enough. Okay, so it's got this, the front, it kind of laps over. I guess it overlaps. She says laps over in the book, which I guess is the same thing as overlap. And it's got this cute little, like, collar thing. I still have to do the other side of the collar. And then I've got these sleeves going on here. And I think you're supposed to fold them back, because in the book it looks like they're folded back. And so the way that these sleeves are worked is you go, I think they're like size 9, 8. Can you see that? Yeah. So 9, 8. These are needle sizes. 5, 4. And then she says for the borders, which includes the sleeves and the collar and this like center border thing, she says you're supposed to use the second size of needles. And I'm confused about that, because there's 5 sizes of needles listed. There's, in the order listed, in the order used, they go 10, 9, 8, 5, 4. But in the needle sizes, they go, I guess it would be 4, 5, no, 10, 9, 8, 6, 5, 4. So there's 6 sizes. And so the needle size that I'm supposed to use for the border, she says use the second needle size, like the second from the largest, or the second that's used. And I just wasn't sure. But because of this thing, the fact that it's the second size used, I'm thinking this is supposed to be like a cuff. I'm thinking. This seems really big to me. What do you guys think? I'm just not sure. I'm not sure about this. It's a good 8 inches, and that just seems like a really big cuff. And I'm wondering if I should knit it on smaller needles. I don't know. I felt comfortable, with the second size of needle recommendation for here and for this little collar thing. But as far as the size for the cuff, I just don't know. So if you could maybe give me your feedback on that and let me know what you think I should do, because I'm thinking I might rip out that cuff and instead of knitting it on a 9, maybe do it like on a 6. The sweater looks too big for you. Word. This is true. The sweater looks too big for me. Maybe if I had used the size yarn that she recommended, which is B, which is baby weight, maybe if I had used a thinner yarn, because this is bordering on worsted. Maybe that's my problem. It seems big. Yeah, it does seem big. Okay, so I'm thinking I'm going to take this cuff out. Smaller needles. Yeah. I don't know that I don't think this would impact the gauge at all, because this is nothing. This is not nearly as difficult to work with as this stuff. This stuff is like spider web. It's ridiculous. But this has got a little bit more body. Okay, so I'm going to make it, this is on 9. I'm going to back it out, and I'm going to do it on a 6. I think that would be better. I'm also wondering if I should put like a little like a cuff link right there. I'm thinking that's maybe what I should be doing. Let me know what you think, because yeah, so I'm thinking do these on a 6 and then add a cuff link. All right. So this is copper cardigan. And I agree with you, Karen. DJ's yarn is gorgeous. She and I actually designed that together. I sent her a picture of a color wheel, and then I sliced out the colors that I wasn't a huge fan of. And I said, do it all like in a spectrum, a fade, like this. But so what she did is she laid all of the yarns, the little mini skeins, like in a pan, like in a sheet pan, and then she dyed them, like this one is purple dye and this one's blue dye and this one's green and like teal, and going from one to the other, but like all the color underneath kind of like bled into its neighbor. And so that's why it's got all those little speckles, like the purple has got some green in it, and it's got some blue, and the pink, the pink and gray, that's something entirely different. But you can see how the red's got like some purple, and the purple's got some red, and it's just, I love all the tonalness to it. She did 2 versions of it. She did one that was just the colors, and then she did another one where she did like a gray glaze over the top, and that's why this pink has got kind of like that steely color to it, is because she added a gray glaze, and it just, yay, it's gorgeous. No cuff link, Maz says. Just don't join 2 squares. Don't join 2 squares for a split. I don't understand that. The needle says that the edge sleeve before the cuff is a size 4. So that's why I'm thinking maybe a 6 for the cuff, because 9 is too, it's wrong. But like maybe even a 5 could work, but then like the 5 for here and around the collar, that would look really silly, because it would bunch up the front of the sweater. And I don't know if you've ever knit yourself a sweater and then made the button band too small, but that looks ridiculous. Done that before. Okay. I don't have time to talk about the linen blouse that I started yesterday. But so we're going to touch that base next week. And let's talk real quick, because I gotta go to bed. Okay, so the bodice blouse and the Hampton shirt, we had planned on those for our next knit along, and those are on page 218. Let me bring that up. 218. So this is the craziness that is bodice blouse. Now I had redrawn the chart for this, page 1 of the chart. When I did it, I did not add this little roadmap. And so I had all the best intentions to do that when I was writing, but I didn't. I can't really work on my computer in the car, so I didn't get that far, but I will. And when I drew the chart originally, I didn't even realize there was a second page. And so that one I still have to do. Anyhow, I'll do that, and hopefully I'll have that for you all next week. But for now, I have uploaded the chart for both bodice blouse and Hampton shirt. If you look down in the description of the video, the link, the Dropbox link to download each one of those patterns is there. And so until I get the new charts, we can just work with the ones Virginia did. And mine are just going to be a little crisper, a little clearer. But I think the roadmap thing that she gave, that's really going to help out. So you shouldn't have any problem, I don't think. All right, so then let's talk about the Hampton shirt. Man's sweater. And the reason I think this is called a man's sweater is because there's no needle gauge shifting. So if you maybe have a bigger bust and a smaller waist, and you want to add some gauge shifting, you could totally do that. Originally it calls for 10 ounces of natural wool yarn. Let's double check that real quick. Let's see if that's accurate. I got my Hampton shirt made from Grandma's Vintage Yarn. Okay. Oh, 10.09. Okay, so this is accurate. It says that this is for a chest measurement of 42. I made it just like she says, and it fits me fine. I'm a 36. So maybe, I know we talked about how we can adjust gauge on that, and I wish I had more time to do that tonight, but I don't. So you can either adjust your needle size, or you can adjust your box number. In the original chart, the box number is 4, and so you're going to cast on, the box number is 4, it's 12, you cast on 12 stitches. So each divided square is going to be is 12 stitches by 12 stitches. And so what you could do is simply increase that number. And in the book, Virginia sometimes will use, like, the box number is 3.5 or something. And so you could simply adjust your box number, and that'll still work fine. You could change the box number to 14, or you could change it to 16, or you could, increase your needle size or adjust your gauge. There's a number of different variations that she uses to adjust the size, and you can do any of those. So I recommend finding, make your gauge swatch, find the type of fabric that you like, and then cast on your divided squares accordingly. And so you'll need, calculate what your bust measurement is. If it's 40, that means you're gonna, I like a little bit of a negative ease. Let's just say you have a 42-inch bust. So you want a negative ease of about, an inch or 2, because it just looks nice. So you'd need 20 inches this way and then 20 inches across the back. And so you've got 4 stitches, 4 squares wide. So each one of those squares would need to be 5 inches wide if you want to make a sweater to fit a 40 or 42-inch bust. And let's see, is mine 5 inches wide? I think so. That looks like about 5 inches. I don't have a ruler here, so I can't check, but that looks like about a 5-inch square. Yeah. And now if you wanted to use bigger needles up top for the bust, and then maybe taper it a little bit more down toward the waist and just adjust your needle size, that's fine too. Now I'm getting a little hoarse. Okay, so both of those patterns are down in the description. Rose says size 5 for the cuff. That would be the second needle size, just in the opposite direction, and leave the button band. I agree. Yes, thank you, Karen, for wearing your Hampton shirt to the yarn shop. I love that. And Karen had a neat trick. Like if you wanted a little bit more room at the waist, what she did, instead of, like, here's the waist seam, instead of having like seaming right here, she left this open, and then you just put a divided triangle right there, and that just gives you a little bit extra room at the waist. And incidentally, you could probably do the same thing with the bust line. Yeah, right below the armhole here, you could just leave that open and then add a divided square too, and that would give you more room at the bust and still make it tapered at the waist. So there's another idea for you. All right, friends, I had more things I wanted to talk about today, but I have to go to bed because 3:30, 3 o'clock, I don't know. It's coming quick, and yeah, so I gotta go. But next week, I'll show you the new I'll show you the new project that I started, and I'll probably have it finished by then, and maybe I'll wear it. That'll be fun. Anyway, I'm really glad that you all came. Thanks again. And oh, one last thing that I promised I would show. I promised I would show this. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Stephanie asked me to show off the tropical leaf car throw. So I'm going to do that real quick. And then I'll go to sleep. Okay. Yay! Our knit along. I know technically the knit along is not over yet because it's supposed to go through the end of the month. But anyway, here are all the great tropical leaf car throws. This one's mine. This is Cats and Betas / Maniacal Moz. And then we got Bubs. I noticed you all did the smaller border. I opted for a bigger border because I like big borders and I cannot lie. Oh. If you were a kid in the 90s, you would know that song. All right, and then we've got Karen's. This looks great. And then Cardinal Knits. Only has one photo, and it's from the book, which is fine. So it looks like we've got, we have to decide on the prize. I was thinking, what do you guys think about this? A mug. It's called the KnitSwag Secret Society Virtual Knitting Guild for Intellectual Introverts. What do you think? I have it on a hoodie, and I also have it on some mugs. Do you think this is a good prize for the knit along? Because it really is kind of a secret group. There's not very many of us. What do you think? Let the dogs out. Ha! So anyway, this is kind of what I'm thinking. I have a 15 ounce and I have a 12 ounce. And incidentally, the first thing I did when I opened up the 12 ounce was I dropped it on the floor. And so the 12 ouncer has a teeny little chip. But you know, it's a coffee cup. And it would be a gift. Okay, I'm thinking that one of these is going to be the prize. Maybe I'll do that all the time for like all the knit-alongs. We'll always give away a Secret Society mug. And as the knit-alongs get bigger, maybe we'll do something else in addition. Yeah, we'll take it as it comes. Awesome. I haven't yet figured out how we're going to award the prize. Maybe if you just put in at the end of the month, if you put in your tropical leaf car throw on Ravelry, mark it as done, and like maybe leave a comment in the thread, and then I'll just like choose a random number, or like have the Google number chooser choose a number for me, and then I'll award the prize. All right. Well, this has been fun. Thanks for coming, and I've so enjoyed hanging out with you. Before I first started this, I used to try to do it by myself, and it was just miserable, and it was awkward, and I hated it. And I was like, I need a co-host. And now I have you. You are all my co-hosts, and I love that. Love that. So great job, everybody. You're like a great co-host. All right, friends, I got to sign off because I have to be in bed in 22 minutes. So thanks again, and I will catch you next time. All right, bye.